Hello my friends, in today's video we will take a look at Sigma 24-70mm f2.8 DGDN in combination with Sony A7R IV-A and A7R III. I have already made a review of this lens with A7 III, concluding that it basically gets a full score when it comes to optical qualities in combination with a 24-megapixel sensor. In this video, we will also try to find out whether it is also good enough for much more demanding 61-megapixel sensor in A7R IV. Besides that, I will also include other stuff such as the autofocus, build quality, and controls for those who haven't seen my previous videos about this lens. 24-70mm is a classic versatile standard zoom focal range. It is suitable for everything from landscapes and cities to portraits and product photography. If you use Aps-C Mode on A7R IV, you can get 105mm full-frame equivalent, basically with XT4 image quality, which is a very relevant option. At f2.8, it is suitable for low-light shooting and blurring the background. Sigma 24-70 was a very welcome addition to the E-mount lens selection because the Sony 24-70mm GM is quite expensive, but not necessarily outstanding in terms of optical performance. Sigma 24-70 f2.8 is 125mm long and it weighs 830 grams. Mounted on A7R IV-A, it is completely fine in my opinion. A larger grip kind of helps with the balance, so I would say that the handling of this combination is pretty good. The only issue might be the space between the lens and the grip if you are wearing thicker gloves. That is an acceptable price for compact size of Sony cameras. Sigma 24-70 is weather sealed. As you might know, there have been some issues with the dust getting inside of the lens. Sigma has acknowledged this issue and they have improved the weather sealing. According to the serial number, this copy is actually one of the last units before the upgrade. If you buy this lens in 2021, it shouldn't be an issue. Both zoom ring and focusing ring on this lens are excellent. Zooming ring has a very even resistance, so smooth zooming is not a problem. Manual focusing is also very good for a focus-by-wire system. It has some artificial feel to it and it is linear. A7R IV-A uses the new 2.36 million dot screen and it has very reliable focus peaking, so I was able to get these repetitive focus pulls quite easily. I greatly appreciate the focus mode switch on the lens because it is more convenient than setting it in camera. The custom button works the same as on Sony lenses, so you can set it up in the menu. The last control element is the zoom lock. Especially if you are carrying the camera with the lens facing downwards, I definitely recommend using it because it will extend due to the effect of gravitation. So how about the optical qualities? I have tested this lens with a very demanding 61-megapixel sensor in Sony A7R IV-A. This sensor also doesn't have a low-pass filter, so it should really show how good are the optics. The central sharpness at 24mm is phenomenal. Even with a 61-megapixel sensor, the resolution is literally perfect right from f2.8 in the center of the frame. There is a very light increase of contrast at f4. f5.6 and f8 look the same, so again perfect. There is a moderate amount of diffraction visible at f11. The corner sharpness is also fantastic right from f2.8, but the contrast is a bit weaker. That is completely fixed at f4. The corner sharpness at f5.6 and f8 is again perfect. At f11 we can see light diffraction. At 35mm the central sharpness is again brutal and this time it is absolutely perfect at f2.8. There can't be any improvements, so it looks the same until f11 where we can see a moderate amount of diffraction. Corner sharpness is again excellent right from f2.8, but the contrast is again a little bit weaker. It is much better at f4 and at f5.6 we can see perfect image quality in the corners. f8 looks the same and again there is some diffraction at f11. At 70mm it is still the same story. Perfect sharpness, perfect contrast, and no chromatic aberration in the center of the frame right from f2.8. f4, f5.6, and f8 still look perfect, and there is a bit of diffraction at f11. The corner sharpness is again excellent from f2.8 to f8, but you need to stop down to f4 to get the full contrast. There is a slight decrease of contrast at f11 due to the diffraction. The overall performance of Sigma 24-70mm f2.8 DGDN in combination with 61-megapixel sensor is outstanding. I expected good results, but perfect sharpness at fully opened aperture throughout the whole zoom range is still a surprise. The decrease in contrast at f2.8 is caused by the profile corrections. This lens actually shows some amount of distortion and vignetting. The camera or the Lightroom have to compensate for that by stretching and brightening the corners, which introduces some noise and loss of contrast. Even after that, the contrast sharpness is still fantastic overall. The fact that Sigma 24-70mm f2.8 can basically fully match the 61-megapixel sensor basically means that it will also be able to match all E-mount and L-mount cameras with lower resolution. The real-world images are just as impressive. Sigma 24-70 has a very good micro contrast, and the real-world images just look very nice. A7R IV and A7R III don't have a low-pass filter, so the look is a little bit different in comparison to A7 III. If you are viewing the images on a good screen or have some large prints, that immense amount of detail and high contrast is clearly visible. I would say that the images shot with our cameras are more punchy, whereas the A7 III images look a bit more analog. A7R IV also has 21-megapixel Aps-C Mode, which basically gives you Fujifilm X-T4 image quality. That is a very nice option if you need more reach or higher magnification for semi-macro shots. 26 megapixels is still more than enough for majority of situations. Minimum focus distance is 38 cm, which translates to 0.22 times magnifications at the long end. That is a very good value for a standard zoom. The image quality at the minimum focus distance is also excellent, and I don't see any ghosting. The bokeh on Sigma 24-70 is among the best that I have ever seen on a standard zoom. I especially like very smooth transitions between areas in focus and out of focus. It is an f2.8 zoom, so you can't expect f1.4 prime separation. The bokeh on Sigma is in my opinion outstanding among the standard zooms, and it is one of my favorite things about this lens. Sigma was able to get the autofocus algorithm right, and I can say that it focuses just as well as the latest Sony lenses. All of the smart features work with no issues, including real-time AF in video. Focusing is very smooth, always accurate, and there is no hunting at all. That applies to both stills and video. The autofocus is completely silent and it won't be picked up by in-camera microphone or external mic. Overall, there are no issues at all with the autofocus. Much like most 24-70mm f2.8 lenses, Sigma 24-70 is not stabilized. A7R IV has the better version of in-body image stabilization rated at 5.5 stops. I would say that it is sufficient at this focal range. At 24mm, I was able to get down to about 1/10 of the second without seeing any blur at 100% magnification. At 830 grams, this lens has some heft to it, which also contributes to better stability. A7R III IBIS is also rated for 5.5 stops, but it behaves a bit differently. Especially in video, it is kind of trying to fix the image in place, whereas the A7R IV is mostly just smoothing out the movement, which is what I personally prefer. 24-70mm DGDN is parfocal. It will keep the subject in focus as you are zooming in and out. The amount of focus breathing is also minimal, which means that objects in the frame won't change the size when you are refocusing. Overall, I can say that this lens is very suitable for filmmaking. I have also tested it with A7S III in my previous review, which will be linked in the description. Last but not least, the value that you get at the price point of this lens is fantastic. I have compared this lens against Nikon Z24-70mm f2.8s, which is also one of the best standard zooms on the market, but it can't beat Sigma at anything and it is more than twice as expensive, so the price of Sigma is great. To sum up, Sigma 24-70mm f2.8 DGDN can match A7R IV and its 61-megapixel sensor. The image quality that you can get with this combination is fantastic. Especially the sharpness at f2.8 is outstanding. You will get perfect central sharpness at f2.8 at any focal length. The corner sharpness is also great right from f2.8, you just need to stop down to f4 to get maximal contrast. The build quality can even surpass some first-party 24-70s. There are no issues with autofocus and it is generally suitable for filmmaking. Considering that the dust issues have been solved, I found only one disadvantage of this lens, which is that it will extend on its own while you are carrying it unless you use the zoom lock. Other than that, there is absolutely nothing that I can criticize. This is actually one of the best pieces of photography equipment that I've ever tested. That means that if you are in a market for a bright standard zoom, I can highly recommend Sigma 24-70mm f2.8 DGDN. So that's it for this video, thank you for watching, I hope that you liked this video and that you have found it to be useful. Stay tuned for more videos and maybe consider subscribing if you don't want to miss my future content. I appreciate your feedback in form of thumbs up or thumbs down. If you would like to ask anything or share your opinion, please do so in the comment section and see you next time.